Hello friends, in case anyone doesn't know yet, my name is Dimitri and I live in Montenegro, in the wonderful city of Herceg-Novi. As you can see, I'm in my office right now. In fact, this is where I've been filming most of my videos lately. We provide migration and accounting services, meaning we register companies, arrange residence permits, and handle accounting for businesses. Why did I choose Herceg-Novi? To be honest, when I came to Montenegro, I didn't really choose because first of all, I didn't have a car at the time. Of course, I have my own car now, but back then I didn't. My son was 2 years old, with a small child, and without transportation, we can't really travel much. So we did some research online and decided on Herceg-Novi. In fact, I'm convinced that there are only 4 cities in Montenegro that are really worth considering for living. Each of them has its own pros and cons, and they are quite different from one another. That's why you can't say definitively that this city is the best and that one is worse. Something will suit each person, and something else might not. I recommend considering Herceg-Novi, Budva, Tivat and Podgorica for living. One of these 4 cities. Not because Montenegro is such a terrible country with only 4 decent cities and all the rest are bad. It's just that the country is tiny, there aren't many cities, so it ends up being just 4. I probably wouldn't consider Kotor for certain reasons, and I wouldn't consider Bar either. I really don't like Bar at all, and I'm always surprised by people who choose to stay there. Ulcinj is a very unique city. I think Ulcinj is the best city for a vacation. It's much better than the much hyped Budva. It's much better than Herceg-Novi. If someone is looking for a good beach vacation, I would definitely go to Ulcinj. But for living, I probably still wouldn't choose it. Now, as for why I chose Montenegro specifically, there are 2 approaches to choosing a country. The first is the one I used, the realistic one. That is, you take a sheet of paper and write down the names of all the countries. There will be, I don't know, 2,300 countries in short, whatever you want. Switzerland, the USA, Australia, Montenegro. You list all the countries. And next to each one, you write down the immigration requirements that apply in that country. I looked at the immigration requirements that you don't meet and crossed them out. And as a result, if you don't have something like $500,000, then most likely your choices will narrow down to 4 or 5 countries. For me, those were Montenegro, Serbia, Bulgaria, Poland, and something else in the Baltics. I can't remember now. I don't want Bulgaria. I've been there, and to put it simply, I just didn't like it. I ruled out Poland for certain reasons. I didn't want the Baltics either. So basically, I was choosing between Serbia and Montenegro. I decided that Montenegro was better. So this is a real, genuinely, you could say, business planner, real approach, reasonable approach. A logically justified approach. I advise everyone to treat the choice of a country for immigration in exactly this way. There is another approach that some people follow, which in my opinion can simply be called complete nonsense. I want that country over there, for example, the USA or Switzerland, it doesn't matter which one. They don't meet its immigration requirements at all. But they'll keep banging on the embassy door for 5 or 6 years, keep getting visa refusals, and keep trying again. In my opinion, that's just foolish. Although I do know people who try to live somewhere exactly like that, but most likely either they will eventually lower their standards, so to speak, or they will end up staying in their home country. What are the specifics of obtaining legal resident status in Montenegro? How can you even move here? The law on foreigners outlines a large number of options. I don't remember exactly how many, but definitely more than 10 ways to move, but many of them are of no interest to anyone. For example, you're probably not interested in the option to move here as a religious worker, or the possibility of immigration for stateless persons. There are options like that, or say immigration for scientific researchers. These types of immigration are provided for in the law on foreigners. But obviously no one actually uses them. If we talk about the real, widely used and popular ways to immigrate, there are only a few. The first and most popular is based on opening a company. Why is it the most popular? Because it's simple, inexpensive and accessible to everyone. The migration costs for immigration are the lowest in the world. The share capital of your company is just €1. There are no requirements for the company. Open a company, get a residence permit. That is, unlike in Western European countries, you don't have to prove your usefulness, how much money you'll invest, or how much tax you'll pay. Montenegro doesn't require any of that. You can even not actually do anything with the company afterwards. Just open a company solely to get a residence permit, and you're guaranteed to receive it. Nowhere else in the world, at least nowhere else in Europe, are there conditions like this. That's it. The second option, which is also a very popular way to immigrate, is based on purchasing real estate. A residence permit is granted for buying property of any value, whether residential or commercial. The third immigration option is through studying. I wouldn't say that this immigration option is extremely popular, but nevertheless, every year I help a bunch of Russian and Ukrainian students get into universities. Montenegro, in terms of tuition fees, probably doesn't have any advantage over other European countries because Europe has both expensive study options like Switzerland and the UK, as well as plenty of very cheap options, for example, Germany, France, where you can study very cheaply, sometimes almost for free. But Montenegro stands out when it comes to ease. There are universities where you can enroll without knowing the language, which is not possible in Western European countries. There are universities and a relaxed immigration policy. In other words, you don't have to sign up at the embassy months in advance or try to coordinate everything with the academic calendar. You don't have to risk being denied a visa. You just show up without any problems, get a residence permit, and you're guaranteed to get it. In short, in this regard, Montenegro is especially attractive, including for students. The next immigration option is through employment. Very few Russians obtain a residence permit through work because this option cannot later be converted into permanent residency or citizenship. Accordingly, Russians are not interested in this. But many people from neighboring countries, for example from Serbia, come for seasonal work. The Serbian passport is neither better nor worse than the Montenegrin one, but wages are higher in Montenegro. That's why seasonal work in Montenegro is very popular among Serbs. Many Serbs work in construction and many work in food service. And probably there are also a lot of Serbs working in other jobs like in various shops. That's it. And the last migration option I want to mention is a residence permit through owning a yacht. Again, it's not the most popular, but each year for 2 or 3 such cases, we do help arrange residence permits. So if you have a yacht and you've paid for a marina, you can get a residence permit for the period you've paid for the marina. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. A residence permit for digital nomads. Again, this option is not popular. For some reason, I'm not sure why or what so many people were waiting for it, even though it was clear that there would be absolutely no demand for it. In other words, remote workers can get a residence permit as so-called digital nomads. This is a new trendy way to legalize your stay in Europe, and it suddenly appeared in many countries. Well, the Montenegrins copied it from someone else too. Yes, this option exists, but it does not lead to permanent residency or citizenship. The maximum length of stay in Montenegro with this type of residence permit is only 4 years. So it's unclear really why anyone would need it at all, why someone would want to get this kind of residence permit. They receive units. I don't know, maybe once every 2 months I see someone at the MUP who is submitting documents for this type of residence permit. So there are very few of them for quite understandable reasons. Now, what are the prospects for entrepreneurs in Montenegro? I'll start by saying that the majority, overwhelming majority, probably about 90% are not engaged in any business in Montenegro at all. They work remotely somewhere, do programming, design, things like that. But there are Russian entrepreneurs again. In most cases, these are remote workers who simply decided to legalize their income from programming and receive it not under the table like most people, but as official white money. Because later they planned to buy some real estate in Montenegro or something else expensive. In principle, that's a logical plan. And of course, there are also what I call real entrepreneurs who create some kind of business not related to remote work. The most prominent example of a Russian business in Montenegro, at least in Hirsek Novi, is the hotel restaurant Lazura. It's an entire complex. There are several restaurants, a hotel, a bar, a beach. They've developed the surrounding area and they've built a marina that is a place for yachts to dock. So it's a whole large complex, and they've also built an apartment building nearby. Well, I don't know how accurate this information is, but they say they invested 70 million. Whether that's true or not, I can't say. But in any case, the complex is quite massive, so it's entirely possible that it really does cost 70 million. Another example of major investment is, for instance, Porto Montenegro, or it was the Canadians who invested in Porto Montenegro. Later, I think the Canadians sold it to someone else. I don't know who the current owner is now, or Porto Novi. It was built by the Azerbaijanis, who invested €1 billion. That's the official estimate, so to speak. It's a major project. Well, someone in Azerbaijan probably built such a project for themselves, a retirement project for their pension. And there are small enterprises as well. For example, in the same Lazura hotel that I mentioned earlier today, a bakery just opened recently, literally this month, just very recently. So someone either bought a space from Lazura or rented a space in Lazura. I'm not sure exactly. The bakery was opened by some Russian guys. They speak Russian and English, but no one speaks Serbian. So everyone just arrived recently. The entire staff is from Russia and the organizer is from Russia as well. As far as I know, he also has some kind of bakery chain there, and he decided to start a similar business here. By the way, if you live in Herceg-Novi, I recommend stopping by. I've already been there 2 or 3 times. It's quite tasty. I like it. So what are the tax rates and obligations? If your company isn't operating, then basically all you pay are taxes and the director's salary. These vary depending on the region. For Herceg-Novi, it's 120 euros per month. In some regions, the salary is higher. If the company is operating, then the profit tax is added, ranging from 9 to 15%. The profit tax is differentiated. It depends on the amount of profit. If the annual profit does not exceed 100,000 euros, you pay only 9%. The tax on receiving dividends is 15%, and VAT, the basic rate, is 21%, but there are also reduced rates of 0 and 7%. For example, 7% if the company owns real estate and rents out this property, say, for a short term, that is by the day. 7%. If you rent out the same property for a long term, then the VAT will be 0%. So this is an interesting feature of Montenegro's tax legislation. So what else is interesting to talk about? What opportunities are there for sports and an active lifestyle in general? I believe that Montenegro is much more suitable for an active lifestyle than Russia. At least definitely more than most cities in Russia. See for yourself, for example, I'm into equestrian sports. We have quite a few riding clubs in the area, and you can either just ride around in a circle or go on a full-fledged horseback excursion. For example, this weekend we're going to Vuce, where we've booked a 2-hour horseback tour. The scenery there is absolutely stunning and beautiful. I don't know if I'll make a video. I only started riding relatively recently. I'm not yet such a confident rider that I could film something while on the move. It's just difficult for me. That's it. Moving on. Skiing. There are amazing opportunities in Montenegro. What resorts are there? Žabljak, Kolašin, Vuce. I always go to Kolašin. I don't acknowledge the other resorts. In neighboring regions, let's say within driving distance, for example, I went this year. Jahorina is in Bosnia, a large resort known for hosting. In some year, I don't remember exactly when, a winter alpine skiing championship. Kopaonik in Serbia is also an excellent resort, amazing, I really liked it. I didn't particularly like Jahorina, but I did like Kopaonik. But it's overcrowded, there are too many people who want to go, and it's still quite far to get there. So out of all these options, I would still prefer Kolašin, where I regularly go in the winter. The other regions can be chosen just for a change of scenery. Next, water sports. Well, of course, yachts are available all along the coast. And Helsinki, I think I already mentioned it today, it's a wonderful place to relax, but I wouldn't want to live there. Vacation, if you're looking for a beach holiday, there's nothing better than Helsinki in Montenegro. Forget all the popular places, Budva, forget about Herceg-Novi, Devata, forget about all of them. Go to Ulcinj. If you're looking for a place for a beach vacation, Ulcinj is the place for you. So, besides the fact that you can just swim there, the beaches are wonderful, Sandy, large, spacious, and not overcrowded with people like in Budva. There's also even stronger wind there than on the rest of the coast. That's why there are excellent opportunities for windsurfing and kitesurfing. You go out to the beach and there are literally hundreds of kites, that's it. So remember, this city, Ulcinj, ranks second in popularity in Montenegro after Budva. I think that's an unfairly low rating. I would put it in first place. If I were going on a beach vacation, I would only go there. No, Budva, absolutely not. Alright. Are there any prospects for investment in Montenegro? I've already talked about large investments today. As for smaller ones, like buying a small apartment, I can talk about that too. I have an apartment that I rent out. I analyzed it and came to the conclusion that I paid it off in 13 to 14 years. I think it's a very good deal to buy an apartment and pay it off in 13 to 14 years. If you buy an apartment, not to rent it out, but for your own living, basically. I just told you how much you can save. You buy an apartment, say for 100,000. Basically, over 13 years, you will have paid that 100,000 in rent. But this way, you don't pay it and it remains your property. You can also buy an apartment as a summer house. There are many people here whom we call summer residents, who come to Montenegro every year for an extended vacation and spend 3 to 4 months a year in the country. Well, go to Booking.com, check the cost of real estate in Montenegro, then see how much property costs on Booking.com. Look at how much it costs to rent a property and then see how much it costs to buy real estate. In 12 or 13 years, you will have paid off this apartment. So it's possible of buying apartments in Montenegro, depending on the amount you invest. If you have the money, the question shouldn't even be whether to buy or not. You should definitely buy. As for the possibility of learning the language, most Russians don't worry about it. While laziness is a completely natural human state. That's it. So many people are just too lazy to learn. Of course, it's preferable to learn the language. Whether to learn it or not, decide for yourself. I just said that most people are too lazy. Most people either don't know the language at all or barely know it. Or maybe they just know some of the simplest phrases and expressions. Learning the language to an average level, enough to speak, is actually not that difficult. In half a year, if you study for an hour a day, you can easily do it. It's hard to learn if you want to speak well, because then you really have to work seriously on expanding your vocabulary, read a huge number of books with a dictionary, translate, learn new words, watch some videos in Serbian, talk to people to improve your pronunciation, correct your mistakes. That's already a large amount of work that will take a lot of time. That's it. But if someone's goal is just to go to the store, the pharmacy, or the clinic, then in half a year you can pick up enough for that. Quite well, that's enough. And actually, you don't even really need teachers. In reality, what's important is not how you study the language, but how much you study, how much time you're willing to spend on it. An hour a week, an hour a day, or however much. The result will depend on that. Ecology. You know, Montenegro is considered an environmentally clean country. Some people might agree with that, some might not, but right now I feel better than I did 15 years ago when I lived in my homeland and was much younger. And that's not only because Montenegrins are so great and do something special. Well, first of all, the population is small, so there are few vehicles, relatively few, meaning less exhaust emissions. And secondly, yes, they are actually doing something about it. They are investing in renewable energy sources, there are wind turbines, there are plans to build the largest solar power plant in Europe. And, well, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that they have built a lot of what the articles in the local Mediacal micro hydroelectric power stations. I've never seen one myself, but I've read about them. And indeed, thanks to this, the burning of anything for electricity generation has been reduced to a minimum, and in most regions the environmental situation is very good. Including now, just recently, a few years ago, they started developing water transport with electric propulsion, and we have several boats running on it. So, in short, they are working on this. Yes, maybe things could be done faster, but overall there is progress. As for the religious situation, I believe that whether you believe in God or are an atheist, it's better not to get involved in it at all. In recent times, over the past few years, we've had 3 or maybe 4 changes of government. I've already lost track of exactly how many. In short, several governments have changed, and 2 of them changed because of religious issues. Some supported the Montenegrin Orthodox Church, while others supported the Serbian Orthodox Church. 2 governments fell because they tried to get involved in resolving the religious issue. The others saw what happens when you do that. Since then, no politician dares to touch the religious question anymore. That's why I think we shouldn't get involved in it either. I'll just say once again that the majority of Montenegro's population is Orthodox. The only exception is in Usinja, the region I've already mentioned twice today. There, the majority of the population is Muslim. It's a Muslim region, but personally that doesn't matter to me. Although I know that for many Montenegrins it does matter. Are you Orthodox or not Orthodox? Personally, I take this quite calmly. It doesn't matter to me who is in front of me. Right. As for the economy, things are quite good in the economy. In fact, this year Montenegro showed the highest GDP growth in Europe. Well, first of all, a lot of Russians came here. The Russians and Ukrainians who arrived spent a certain amount of money here. And secondly, last year Montenegro carried out an excellent tax reform. The main idea is that they significantly reduced payroll taxes, but at the same time greatly increased the minimum wage, which naturally also raised the average wage. As a result, employers were given an incentive to raise salaries. First, payroll taxes decreased. Second, even if you raise wages just a little, you can no longer pay someone just the minimum. You are forced to raise wages, and wages in Montenegro really did increase significantly. And when wages rise, the population's purchasing power increases, people started spending more, and accordingly this also led to GDP growth. So those were the 2 main reasons. By the way, the tax reform I just mentioned, the budget didn't lose anything because of it. Yes, they lowered taxes, people started paying much less in taxes, but salaries became much higher. As a result, more taxes were actually paid. So the budget didn't lose anything. But with this simple move, you could say they significantly raised the standard of living in Montenegro. And I'll say this, if the government wants to, they do claim that they want to raise salaries even further right now. The stated goal is that the minimum wage should be no less than 700 euros, which is basically logical. Then I think that another tax reform like the previous one, where we lower taxes but raise the minimum wage, would be very timely. So, friends, you can contact me with any questions about immigration to the country. And if you want to order services for paperwork, company registration, residence permit processing, or accounting services, feel free to reach out as well. Goodbye to everyone.